Hi everybody, Russell here from VectorVest. Let's get right into the weekly video. Now, you might have seen in the news in recent days, Tesla bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. So looking at the Bitcoin price, for those of you that follow Bitcoin, you can see over the last year, well, it's gone a bit crazy. It's gone from about $10,000 all the way up to 46 odd thousand dollars as of time recording here. Bitcoin operates on the blockchain network there. Is this a way of future money? Is this going to be a future form of transactions? A whole lot of debate out there. And then some analysts debate out there that it's not to be seen as a form of currency, it's a form of a store of value. It's one of the smartest stores of value according to prominent analysts out there. And then you get those on the other side of the equation saying it's nothing more than a scam. Be careful, you'll lose all your money. Well, I'd have to say that Tesla putting in $1.5 billion of their own money speaks volumes about whether this is a scam or not. So Tesla's put their money forward. So how could I get some exposure to Bitcoin / blockchain technology? Is there a way to do it? I'd much prefer to do it via the share market than having to go into some of these exchanges where we've all heard the horror stories behind hackings and issues behind that. I'd rather stick to the trusted share trading platforms. So I got to work and I built a watch list. Without further ado, in Australia, so the watch list we've put together here for you. So under viewers, if you click on watch list viewer and then under overview watch lists, so you find the group there, overview watch lists, the team have put in a watch list there called blockchain stocks. Now these are all the blockchain stocks. I'll just make this nice and neat, right click, auto fit all columns. These are the blockchain stocks in Australia. I'm not saying that this is the definitive list. I've identified 22 of them, and I'm not saying that these companies are 100% involved in Bitcoin / blockchain, right? They have some affiliation, a lot of affiliation in some cases, to a wee bit in other cases. So here are the 22 stocks I've identified behind this blockchain / Bitcoin type revolution taking place. And if I right click over here and have a look at the watch list average graph, you'll see we're still in early days. All right, so you can see we're starting to turn the corner here. Something's starting to take place. If I turn off the earnings here, look at that. Some pretty explosive upward price momentum here. Now, be warned. All of these companies here, none of these here really jump out at me in terms of an earnings profile. All right, so we're still very early days in the whole earnings profile type story. And you'll notice too that the average price across these companies here are below $1 on average, right? So 19 cents being the average here. The fundamentals are not really defined at this point yet. It's still fairly new type of technology. The applications upon the blockchain are yet to be developed. So if these companies can find a way to utilize the blockchain in real world finance, real world day-to-day requirements, which they're working on feverishly behind the scenes, then watch out. Some of these companies could become significant companies into the future. Me personally, I'm quite excited about what blockchain offers. I think it's an incredibly smart technology. I think we just need to now find a place for this to be accepted within our traditional financial network. Why not be able to use a blockchain to do banking? It's not acceptable that it takes 4 or 5 days for me, for example, from Australia to transfer money to, let's say, New York in terms of a bank account. I'd like to follow it on a blockchain. So I'd like to send it within 20, 30 minutes, it's verified, and within 50, 60 minutes thereafter, it's in the blockchain account equivalent of the person I'm sending the money to. Wow, revolutionary. And instead of paying the banks $50, $60 each way to make the transaction, or maybe a little bit less, but nonetheless still significant fees, it would only cost me a couple of cents to send the money. Right, so this technology is phenomenal. I've looked at it. I've read, what's the book there? The Bitcoin Standard. Incredibly interesting read. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on behind the scenes. Just because the technology is exceptional doesn't necessarily always mean it will work out. Okay, so you've got great technology. The next step now is to make sure that that technology has a use in society. And that's where we are at the moment. So it's high risk. It's fairly high risk at the moment. there'll be those of you that argue to say, no, it's not, certainly not high risk at the moment. Bitcoin is guaranteed to succeed. This is just the start of many, many more companies putting Bitcoin onto their balance sheets. Time will tell. Okay, so very interesting in terms of what's taking place here. So here are the ones here for you to consider for Australia. And like I noted, none really sort of jump out at me from a fundamental perspective currently. Let's do this. Let's quick test all of these companies here. So what I'll do here is I'll go back to the start of the year. So let's just have a look at the start of the year, 4th of January there. And let's quick test all. And let's have a bit of a look here. So you can see since the start of the year, up 0.14, quite a few have fallen away. But look up the top here. So these are the ones that obviously have more affiliation to what's going on with the Bitcoin spot price potentially, or have some advanced projects in the pipeline, whatever it might be. But let's see the first two here, WOO and RZI. So let's go and sort it by symbol here. And first one here I want to find is WOO. Let's graph this one here. Right, so you can see over here, wow. So this one here is fairly speculative. Okay, so you can see here, certainly not one I'd be wanting to jump in anytime soon, but nonetheless, you can see, being a micro cap type sort of stock, moving from, what's that, 0.002 of a dollar to 0.003 of a dollar. Well, you can see how it causes quite a big jump in the price, but would you be comfortable buying 0.002 of a dollar in terms of price? Okay. And the other one that we had to look here was RZI. Okay, so there it is. This is an interesting company here. They found a way for investors to round up their cents when they make a certain purchase, and it puts it into a type of account for them that helps them save. Raise Investment Limited has some exposure to Bitcoin, so hence that's why they are associated there with Bitcoin. So not only have you got some exposure to Bitcoin, but you've also, of course, got great exposure in terms of that company's business model at the moment. All right, so in terms of a listing here, it hasn't been around for much more than 2 and a bit years, right? So if you're more conservative, you want at least a 5-year track record. All right, so early days for Australia in terms of the blockchain type stocks. Let me have a look at America now. Now, for America here, I've built this blockchain list. So you're not going to find this in the States. You can set up your own watch list should you choose. I'll give you all the stocks here so you can go and have a look at them. So you can jot them all down. You might just want to pause the recording and then just build yourself a watch list and populate these in. All right, so you'll see over here if I just scroll down just a wee bit more. So you might just need to pause the video and I'll scroll down just a wee bit more again. Okay, so you might just have to pause that and build that watch list equivalent. So there we are for the US. Here's 22. Now, this is going to be a very different story. In the US, a lot of these companies are associated with blockchain / Bitcoin, but they are adding that to everything else that they do. So, for example, AMD, the big, chip manufacturer. We've all heard of Amazon, right? So Amazon has got some exposure to blockchain and whatever have you. So you can see a lot of these companies here, you're not just simply investing into Bitcoin and hoping that Bitcoin prices continue to power on. MasterCard, Microsoft, MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is an incredibly interesting one because MicroStrategy, their CEO, Michael Saylor, is another CEO who has bought over $1 billion of Bitcoin and put it onto the company's financials. All right, so plugged it into the company's balance sheet. So interesting. So let's go and have a look at the bottom watch list average here for all of those companies. You'll see a very different story for this one here. Look at this. Look at the earnings profile on this one here, because it's not just simply relying on the Bitcoin price. There's a lot behind these companies here. So you can see in recent times, look at those earnings really going up at a massive rate of knots. Price going gangbusters. Look at that, gone from a low there of, what was it there, 150 odd back in March 2020. And effectively that portfolio has doubled since that time. So just shy of 2 years, it has doubled. Wow, phenomenal growth on that. So the last thing I want to do today here is I want to go and have a look at MicroStrategy, who've put $1 billion onto their balance sheet, as well as Tesla in terms of Bitcoin. So they've bought $1 billion of Bitcoin each between these two companies, so over $2 billion of Bitcoin here between these two companies. Why are they putting this onto their balance sheets? Time will tell. Let's go and graph these. All right, so here's MicroStrategy. Very interesting story of MicroStrategy here. You can see here we are, and then Michael Saylor, the CEO, started to talk a lot about Bitcoin and plugging it into their balance sheet. And the price went from about 150 odd a couple of months ago all the way up now to 1,272. So whatever he's doing, he's causing this price to spike dramatically. Interesting times. I'll watch with interest to see how that continues to play out. Look how accurate VectorVest is here. Look at this. Buy rating at $181. All right, $181 back there, approximately the 5th of November. Let's go back a bit. Yep, hold their return to buy, 181. Look at the price today, 1,272. It has not changed, okay, from a buy rating since. And if I come into here, here's Tesla. Tesla's only recently come out to say it's added $1 billion of Bitcoin onto its balance sheet. But look at this, buy rating popped up on the 17th of November, 441. The price is now over $840 odd. Right, so the last thing I want to do here is I now want to go and change this to being a performance graph. So we're in VectorVest US, and there's Tesla. And what I'll do here is I'll add in MicroStrategy. So I'm just typing the word micro, and then there we are. VectorVest prompts us. You say, oh, that's the one, MSTR. There we go. Let's put that in. And I want to have a look at these two companies side by side. I'll just make this jump out just a wee bit more. There we go. I'll make this one jump out a wee bit more. Here we go. And I'll push an OK. There we are. So I've just fixed it up. And there we are. Look at this. So very interesting. Two very explosive companies here in recent times. If I come in here to 6 months, look at that. MicroStrategy is powering away there, leaving Tesla in its wake at the moment. But in fairness, if you go back 5 years, let's compare it over a 5-year period. And look at that. Tesla certainly the winner over the 5-year period. So interesting times. I'll pull it back over 1 year. So if you want exposure to Bitcoin, you can take the risk and go and buy Bitcoin on an exchange. You have to store it on cold storage and all that type of thing to keep it safe. Right? You've all heard the horror stories behind what's happened to people being hacked and all that type of stuff. Why go through all that pain? Why not buy it through a recognized exchange via a share? It's just an option. Some investors will say, no, I'd rather buy it outright and buy it via an exchange if I was to consider Bitcoin. Other investors would say, no, I don't want to put all my eggs into one basket. I want companies that are exposed to Bitcoin but also have numerous other cash flows behind them. This is my preference, the latter. I'd rather consider Tesla and MicroStrategy, who effectively have become Bitcoin holders, heavily into Bitcoin now, along with all the other great earnings behind them. Fascinating stuff. Hope you got a lot out of this week. Until next week, bye for now.